Welcome to another episode of Political Frequencies. Today I'll be reviewing a site called govtrack.us. Join me. Welcome to a site review of govtrack.us. Tracks the, as it says, the United States Congress, the legislation, who votes for what, the various iterations that the bills go through, all the detail, as well as summaries of the various legislative agendas that are in process either by the Senate or the House or the various committees and subcommittees. So if you care about what bills the government's passing or trying to pass, this is, as far as I know, the best site on the web for doing it. I've been using it for, I think, about 14 years. So since about 2006. So I'm just going to do a quick review. I'm not going to go into all the detail. You could spend easily a couple hours on this site. But I will go through the main points that I think are relevant and worth talking about. There'll be a link in the description below, so you'll be able to get to the site and play around with it yourself. I do recommend setting up an account. It only takes a couple minutes. It's free, and it provides you with, to the extent you want, daily updates of any part of the website. So specific legislation, specific members, how they're voting, etc. But I'll go through that as I pop through some of the options here. So this is the main page. From here, you can do your representative and senators. So a quick way to find out who represents you. You can also find out by issue what's going on. So if you care about, for example, crime and law legislation, education, etc. So two sort of quick ways to get to various parts of the site. I typically don't use these. I come into Congress, and depending on what I'm trying to do, I choose one of these two top options: members of Congress or bills and resolutions. So I'll just go through a couple of these, as I said. If you go to members of Congress, it's a great way to, as I said, figure out who's representing you. If you allow the location, it'll automatically tell you who's representing your specific location. I'm in Pennsylvania, so these are my two senators, and for my district, this is my representative, Madeleine Dean. All three of these people, not to digress too much, are just terrible. But I'm sure that's not a surprise to most of you. But I can look at their legislation. I can, here you'll see track. In this case, track him. There's also a track bill. If you click on that, you can actually track specific things about whatever item you're looking at. In this case, I'm looking at Bob Casey. I can track all events, just his voting record, or just his sponsored bills. And then I can get those either in email updates or daily updates. Both come in the form of an email. It can get a little overwhelming, so, obviously make sure you want to consume the things you're asking to track. Otherwise, you'll get quickly inundated with emails, which I think none of us want at this point. So going back to members of Congress, it gives you the report cards. Over here, it gives you some details on the Senate as well as the House in terms of the distribution: Democrats, Republicans, Independents. It gives you their age as well as their gender, because we know how important that is. So just a couple quick important items. So anyway, this members of Congress option is a great way to get to representatives you specifically care about, whether they're the reps from your state, senators and Congress, or representatives, or they're from another state. I use this to, for example, to look up Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, and a couple other folks over the last sort of 6-9 months. But I've used it many times over the years to see how somebody is voting or voted on a particular bill or piece of legislation, resolutions, etc. Going to bills and resolutions, this is really, in my opinion, the meat of the site. This is where most of the value is. From here, it gives you a quick sort of what's coming up. Obviously, we're under the pandemic quarantine, so there's not a lot going on. They're on break, I think, for 3 weeks, which typically is a good thing. Tells you what's trending, and then the top bills that are tracked and how many people are tracking those bills. If you look through these, there's probably one or two or more that you'll care about. So it's a good place to wind up in terms of a landing page for bills and resolutions. Typically, what I do is go to find a bill, and then I come down here and click advanced search, and this will give you, excuse me, a really nice summary that you can drill down and get to specific types of bills, whether they're in the House or the Senate, whether they passed or yayed or nayed, etc. You can see there are 11,760 bills for the 116th Congress, which is the current Congress, obviously. You can enter text and do a search. You can come down here and pick a sponsor or a congressman, and then from here you can see it'll show you all the bills they sponsored. So if I come down and I pick Casey, my guy, you'll see he's sponsored 85 bills. He's a senator, so these are all S bills or resolutions. So S period and then a number means it's an actual bill. S.res and a number means it's a resolution. So, but you can drill down further if you want and just get resolutions, just get bills, etc. I'm going to go back up here to all. And the cool thing here is it gives you the numbers that are related to each one of these items. So how many bills were introduced? 9,918. How many passed the House? How many passed the Senate? Agreed to, pass Senate with changes, etc. So it's a really good way to figure out what bills in general are moving through the process, whether or not they got stopped, why they got stopped, who stopped. Down here you can drill down on bills or resolutions, so House resolutions, Senate bills, etc. So I don't use that option that often. Typically I come in through one of these main options. Unless I'm looking for specific legislation, then I use the search and go from there. So if we go, CARES bill is somewhere around here. Let's look up this way, COVID, and see what we get. So families first, take responsibility for workers. Here's the CARE bill right here. And so if I click on that, just like any other bill, I can get to a pretty quick summary of what the bill includes, and then it goes through and details a lot of the specifics or what they deem as the major parts of the bill. If you want, you can get to the full text by going to text, and that'll give you the actual full bill, which I think this one's, I don't know, 1,000 pages or something. You can download the bill and then search it. You can see here, download the PDF. So, and I know people do that a lot. In this particular bill, the one that was originally put forth by the House, they did a search on diversity, and I think the word diversity came up some ridiculous number of times, which of course has nothing to do with the coronavirus. Anyway, so bills, resolutions, members of Congress, the two most powerful parts of this site. Voting records is exactly what it sounds like. Voting records for a particular Congress or one or the other House or Senate. And then again, you can go through and further go into detail, cloture, amendments, passages, etc., and then whether or not they passed or failed. And from there, you can get to all the detail of the bill. It gives you a nice little graphic here that represents who voted for it. And so you can tell the distribution just by the color, whether it was Republicans or Democrats, or in this case, both. So a quick way to sort of get a summary of voting on particular bills. The committees are just what you'd think, the Senate and House committees. But from here, you can select one. Let me select one that's relevant. Finance. From here, it'll give you a summary of the committee and what they are responsible for. It'll tell you who the chair is, the ranking member, the distribution of Republicans, Democrats, and in some cases, independents. When Bernie's on it on the committee, then they'll show up as an independent, obviously. So it gives you all the breakdowns here of who makes up this particular committee. You can go here and click and see what bills came out of this committee or referred to this committee, were referred to this committee. Reports that were produced by the committee. You can download them just like everything else as a PDF. The subcommittees, which there are lots of subcommittees related to a lot of these major committees, so you can drill down on those as well. And then any press statements that came out of the committee or any representatives of the committee. You can track the committee just like everywhere else. So if you care what the Committee on Finance, for example, is doing, you can click track. And the same as tracking a member or a bill or anything else, you can get summary, you can get detail, you can get all the activity, and then you can get that either daily or in typically weekly email updates. So it's a pretty convenient way to stay on top of, excuse me, particular bills, legislation, and representatives. Oversight investigations is exactly what it sounds like. There's only a few. They're all related to Trump and the impeachment, family separation, Mar-a-Lago attendee. I mean, just ridiculous stuff for the most part. They don't oversight or investigate anything that spans both parties, which is pretty much everything. Trump is an exception to that for obvious reasons. Anyway, that's kind of a summary there of oversight and investigations. Congressional misconduct gives you some good details, and then it'll give you specific representatives or senators that are being called out for particular finance, I think is what that's related to. Anyway, you can go through all these, and again, if you wanted to click on the detail, you can get all the wonderful detail of it. You can get the distribution of her ideology, where she sits. You can see she sits pretty far to the left. Any ratings or advocacy agencies that track her or have come out with a position on this particular congressman will be represented here. There's usually more than one, but she's a first term representative, so there's not a lot yet. And then you can see what committee she's on, what legislation she's been involved in enacting, what bills she sponsored, and then her voting record on specific bills. It's, again, really handy. You can track anything about her. You can directly contact her, etc. So it's pretty powerful. And then there's some documentation here. How does a bill become a law? So if you care about that, they have a couple of cool videos that explain it. I think one of them was done on Schoolhouse Rock. I remember seeing that when my kids were young. I remember them having to watch it and then do a book report on it, which was pretty cool. Congressional procedures. So if you care about the details of how the House or the Senate works, you can find them here. They're not fun to read. I've tried. They are not, in my opinion, not really worth a lot of energy. And then there's books and games they recommend, which I've actually never clicked on. And it doesn't look like the pages working that well. None of the images are showing up. The other option I'll go through quickly is Track, which is a way to track stuff directly from the tracker, as opposed to going in through members of Congress bills and resolutions or one of these other options. So you can go directly in when you're specifically looking to track some particular thing. So it's really just a different way to get to the information in these 5 items. So, in summary, great site. Really, really good site if you care about legislation and what the government's actually doing. Sorry for my email. I usually don't get that many emails, but of course when I'm recording. Great site for figuring out what's going on in government. It really is. It's not one-stop shopping. There's other places to go if you want to see executive branch stuff. What the president's doing in terms of executive orders or national emergencies, that kind of stuff. But this is an incredibly handy site. As I said, I've been using it for at least 14 years, since 2006, and it has not let me down. So I highly recommend it, even if you only care about one particular bill or your own state senators and representatives. This is a great place to come to figure out what they're actually voting on. And what you'll find, which probably won't surprise a lot of you, is their external or public positions on things do not always reconcile to how they actually vote. It just shows you how bad politicians really are. So, anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I have a couple other sites that I want to go through, but this is the best one. So enjoy. I hope you guys find this helpful and useful going forward. All right.